Oh, that's loud. Oh, that's loud. No, no, no. Whoopsie. Sorry about that. Hello. Day 9. Woo! Almost at double digits. Hello, everyone. How is it going? Welcome to, day 9 of our development. Things have been going very great. So let's keep that up today. Hello, hello. So, sorry for starting a bit late. I actually wanted to start at noon. But what ended up happening was 3D printing is painful, and supports can sometimes be very painful to rip apart. Especially since I was using fresh new filament, so that actually made it a lot harder, I noticed. Or maybe it's just the color pigmentation difference. I don't know. I don't print too often, so I'm like, so despite having had a printer for many years, I am very, very novice in terms of when it comes to printing. But that's besides the point. I do want to share about what I've been printing in the future, but not at the current moment. That's a different issue. I will definitely want to share that stuff though. It's pretty cool. Okay, that does work. Okay, so welcome. Yesterday was a very good day. So, for those who don't know, let me actually pull everything up real quick for you guys. We made some very substantial progress. And as I should always mention, don't forget to check out the GitHub if you want to see some of the things I've been working on. But that is something... Ooh, what am I looking at right now? Okay, oh, this is the project. That's why I was confused. Hold up, I'm sorry. So, what we were working on yesterday was something very, very important, which was function calls in a JSON format. So, one of the biggest issues that I've had with the system that I've always been thinking about, that we finally solved as of yesterday, was what to do about function calls. And what do I mean by that? I don't just mean calling functions in your development software, right? You know, it's very easy to just go, okay, let's just do call J and then fill in the args, right? Simple enough on this type of native coding platform. But what happens if you're not coding on your native native editor? What happens if you're doing something external? What happens if you're trying to import a file, right? What happens if we are trying to import I always skip past it, but what happens if we are trying to take a zip file which in its contents has all of these other JSON files, and in that process we need to interpret that data and display some of that data. Oopsies. This unit A1. What happens if we want to display new data? And that's what we've been working on for the first week, right? This basic display data has been very simple. We can display and edit basic data points, right? We can even damage the units, right? We can damage unit A1 and do 10 damage. We can do all of that very simply. But what does that actually do for us? It keeps us in a very basic world where we are doing the most rudimentary, fundamental manipulations. Anything can be done in this world, right? We can simulate like a 5 burn damage situation. 5 burn damage has been dealt. But that is not automated. We want to automate the system inevitably. So how do we get there? And that is where we get into function calls. What happens if I want to use an attack that on hit inflicts that burn, and then that burn has to do something? What does that burn do? It will deal damage by the stack, and then divide itself by 2. Okay, very cool. Why can't you just implement that in the main function? Well, what if someone wants to change it so that instead of dealing damage by a stack, it's twice the stack? And they could always edit this data here. But what if they didn't want to do that? What if they instead wanted to not touch the actual code here and make something else in JSON? What happens if we want to make this JSON system our own scripting language, maybe a block-based system like Scratch? These are a lot of questions that we have to answer. And that all comes down to this function-based system where we have some function that we want to call, and we can only refer to it in this JSON text format, and we have to do that translation. That was last stream. That was a very fun time. We did a lot of major improvements here. This small amount of text here was most of what we did last stream, and it looks like a very small amount of write-up, but it was a lot of learning for me too, just reading Godot docs and understanding how this engine works, the amount of power it has over, you know, something I used to use in the past like Scratch, or like out of the box like Java or whatever, right? And we have all of these options. So now we can call a method by its name, and we can give it some set of args to call off of. And not just that, we can call a function from a function call, right? What happens if we want to run the roll command, but the power value is itself another function? Maybe it's a function based on the amount of remaining health in the unit. That itself is a function call for us. Well, that's a nested loop, right? This deal damage by an attribute of stack. That's a nested thing. We can't just say deal damage by stack. That doesn't make sense. You can't pass stack in to like an integer argument. So that is where we check for nested dictionaries and work off of that. Prop call. This is something I came up fresh last stream, and that is that we can now take something like a native array and manipulate it. This is going to be tremendously useful when we get to stuff like units. You know, if we want to manipulate a unit, that is not stored in our normal JSON file tree. It is specifically stored in the game manager as a dictionary of string unit pair. Okay, we can always make functions that can edit those directly, and then just use those handmade by us functions in our editor. But that's a bit difficult. So what if, like, for example, this temp array, we could manually edit it, you know, as in here, right? I commented all of this, but I can uncomment it briefly just to show off what we're looking at here. So in this case, we were looking for I in range 10, you know, just iterating, and we could do a prop call on that temp array and duplicate it. What this would do it would give us the values of the temp array, right? And then we can then prop call the temp array and set an index randomly rolled within its size range -1, so from ranges 0 to the size -1, inclusive on both ends, and then give it a value of a random roll of 1d10 plus 10. And all of that is to say, we are able to get that data, and this is actually mutated data. If you check temp array here, it would actually have the values 18, 11, and 14. And this, of course, extends to we can now edit the unit list, right? We can't actually edit it in this method because, actually, no, we can, because run game stat already occurred. So now that I've demonstrated this, I'll actually delete this code. It is in the most recent commit to the GitHub, but we will be... Oopsies. Okay, I just randomly received something. So we will be working on that later. So let me, real quick, remove this work that we did yesterday, just because I want to actually demonstrate something bigger, right? Before we move on to the scope of today's topic, I want to show something pretty significant, right? Let's actually do a call J, and let's actually do a prop call with the arguments, and we are going to prop call. Can we? This is actually a good point. I don't think I can actually reference unit list. This is actually an important distinction, right? So something like unit list, for example, I don't know. How do we refer to that? I might want to make copies within functions. This is actually a good question. How do I handle that, right? Because, for example, this references here will be something too, and I could probably actually put unit list, dice list. I could actually probably add all of these into the references here, but references was meant to be a temporary storage position. So maybe I'll actually have a game manager reference, so I can actually get all these values. Let's think about that for a second. So that's a big thing, which is how do we refer to things outside the scope of functions, right? Because this prop call has been working pretty well for things within. Like an external prop call system where we can then start to reference things outside of our scope. That's an important thing to answer. I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to deal with that just yet. There are a couple of things we do need to deal with, though. So, firstly, there are, of course, limitations right now, right? with prop call, we are able to get a large amount of new functions, right? We can do array manipulations, we can do dictionary manipulations, but we can't have like a var val equals 10. This int here, we can't really do val dot like add. There is no like val. It's a primitive. We can't do val add with a 10 or whatever. That doesn't exist, right? I don't think there is even like an integer object as there is in Java. So we are missing a lot of that functionality. So the funny part is that we are in fact going to make, and this is why I called this stream the basic, rewriting the basics, reinventing the basics. Stuff like addition, we are going to have to add. So let's actually do that right now, before I get into some of the more challenging questions of today. Right, basic add commands are very important. So, let's see, we can just do v1, and then v2. And that is just going to return v1 plus v2. It looks silly, but this is what we have to do, right? So v1. And actually, I might make these just general floats. Interesting. Actually, this is a good point. If I make these floats, but I don't really want to have integers, addf. Actually, I'll have an addf function. So we'll also have a function addf, which is going to be my float. And I might want to try and decide how I want to put these into a, what's it called? Another class. But that's actually, I think that is something we do need to answer, right? So, one of my issues, right, is, of course, calling things in other files. That is kind of an important thing here that I don't really know if I have access to stuff. I'm trying to decide how I would do that. Like, how would I do this, right? So we have prop call here, and we can call some property values. Let's think about this. Because I want to call it like dice list or unit list, right? And that would be, right, if we start off here, we do functions dot call j, and then we would of course want to do a prop call. But the problem is that prop call kind of stops here, right? Because we can't really do like game. I don't think we can do game manager dot something else here. I don't think we have that ability because functions doesn't have the property of game manager, right? I could actually maybe, if I do export gmref, let's see, gmref, which is equal to game manager. That's actually an option. Let me think about that. Does that actually give it any options? So if gmref, okay, so gmref, do I have any ability, do I have any manipulation of gmref? I do. I can actually do stuff like fetch data. I can get the unit list. Okay. But that's not really like a method call, right? So the issue is in prop call, we can get the property, right? And then we can do a method call from that property. But the problem with that is that everything stops there. So I think we need a new function, which is a prop nest, right? Where we get a property, and we then get a property from that property, and prop call off of that, right? So we're actually going to need a prop nest, right? So get prop. So that is going to be here. Function get prop. And that's going to be from property string, and then subprop is going to be another string, right? It's going to be as simple as that. And all we're going to do is we're going to see if that, so if the first property doesn't exist, we return null. But then we would do, let's see. I'm trying to see if we can do. Let's do it somewhere else. Can I theoretically do, so game manager, can I do functions dot, can I do get property functions? I should be able to get a property which is called references, right? I should be able to get that property. Or maybe in this case I'll bring back that temp array, right? Which is then equal to 0, 1, 2, or 0, 1, 2, right? So I can then get the temp array, right? So when I run this, I think if I print it, it's just gonna give me like the hash value of that array. Oh yeah, it will actually just give me the array. Oh wait, it does, yeah. But then, what about if I want to do, if I don't have functions, right? Let's say if I had a ref to functions, right? Let's say if I have something here which is called function ref, right? I'm just going to throw it here for now. Can I get the property function ref? So I should be able to print get and then function ref, right? I should be able to get this property, which for now equals game manager. That's actually a mistake. This should be equal to functions. So if I then do that, it will give me a null. Does it just not exist, or does it not have a way to return that? Or does funcref just not work if I do that? Maybe it doesn't work. Interesting. I was wondering if it could save like the static instance of this. This is an interesting issue of how do I work around this, because I don't know how I would work around this actually right now. That's kind of a tough question. So funcref is still returning null. That's not really a good sign. Can I get? I'm like doing a random, like, I don't know, because I'm trying to see if I can refer to another function here. I could also maybe, okay, globals could be a thing. Yeah, I think part of it could be if I refer to things in this, if I just export like functions dot temp_var, right? Does that actually work? If I give it functions dot temp_var, does that actually work? Or maybe you have to do already. Does not work. Does this work the other way? I don't know how these tags work. That seems to not work. Okay. So it is not liking that. Because I want to get a property. I want to do functions.get, right? I'm basically trying to do functions.get this array, but then how do I know that I need to refer to functions? I think I can just do a switch case for this, because I don't know how else I can refer to a global script. Let's actually look at the object class and see if we can find anything specific. Because if we look here, I'm not seeing too much at the moment. So let's go to the object class, right? let's remember what manipulations we actually have access to here. Because we can get properties, but I don't think we can actually fetch if we can refer to a script by a string. Actually, let's see. Can I look up on Godot forums real quick? Get properties from a. What am I like? I'm trying to get them from a global script, right? But I'm not seeing like any. I don't think anyone has ever had this issue before. It's such a niche thing and probably an issue with how I've coded this. But yeah. I think the best bet is to maybe have game manager stuff kinda referable by functions. Because I'm not sure. I think stuff like this. Right, like, we can export all of these because these are directly useful to us. Stuff like the file tree is also a useful thing that we're gonna have to refer to. But anything else here, the console, sure. Well, we don't really directly manipulate the console, but I'll also make this is all export just for the sake of like easy edit. But I think what we just do here is instead we do, because we can't really get a property off another property, I don't feel like. I mean, maybe we can, but not from global variables, right? Not from these global scripts. These global scripts don't work like that. I can't do this GMRef equals game manager, right? This doesn't work. Like, I was kind of hoping, right, I could do like GMRef. Hold on, maybe it doesn't work here. Like, I thought I could do maybe GMRef dot get, and then I can get a property from it. It feels like it should work. It feels like it should work. I'm not sure. Does it just not work? I want to try. Let me think. If I try this again, right? I'm just gonna try. Because if I do that, but then it gives me a null value if I try to get the property function ref. It doesn't like that. Even though, right, I can do funcref dot. Like, I can do functions dot prop call from the property of can I do the can I do the property of GMRef? No. I think the issue is, I'm not sure what the issue here is. I'm trying to decipher what the issue here is. I'm not really sure if I can grasp how I want to solve this issue, right? Because my idea, right, is that you can do something like, I can print function ref dot get the temp of. I should be able to do that, I think. Let's see if it works. Okay, it doesn't work. So that's out of the picture. That's good to know that this is completely out of the picture, and there's no reason to fight for it. I do kind of need the chain though, right? I do need the chain prop ref, right? If I want to refer to unit list and then getting some index from it, and then actually no, that doesn't need that. Yeah, I don't really need to refer to that. But what happens if I get unit list dot get unit, and then from the unit I need to prop ref off of it again? Maybe I can do something called prop ref from, prop call from, right? So it's a string from another thing, right? prop call from, and it's gonna be from a string. It's gonna be from object. So then we do the object dot get, and we can specify that this has to be some object, right? And otherwise, we will make the callable object dot get property. Or, I mean, I think part of the issue is we can't like do a call J off of another method. That's more of our issue here. Not really that we can't like prop call from an object. Or maybe I'm saying the exact same thing. Prop call and method call, right? I mean, let's think about it, right? So I don't need this subprop thing anymore. I do need the args. Oh, because this was creating the callable, right? This was doing a sub manipulation. If I'm just trying to get a property, like from a property, can I get a value from it, right? That's my question. Yeah, because I need to do a prop call chains. I can't really do a prop call chain at the moment. Prop call only works with a string, right? And I can't take an existing object and say look for a property in this object, which is why I need the prop call from here. And then I need the method here. What happens if I don't want to refer to a method? What happens if I want to refer to a primitive, right? Like an integer? Do I do anything there? Because this also this works for a prop call chain, right? I can prop call unit list dot, and then unit list dot get a string like a1 gives me a unit. After I prop call that unit, I can then in the unit do a prop call from the object of unit, look for the property of dataset, right? Or anything else here, right? I don't really need GM unit list. I don't need to refer back to that. But save dice I need, and target I'll need. I'll just put this in here just in case I ever need it. It doesn't hurt. I don't think it does it anyways. I'm not sure how Godot optimization really plays out. But then I can do, say, save dice and then get the first value of the save dice. I can do something like that. That's what this prop call from will do. And that does solve a big issue that we had, right? If I want to get prop, like, actually, I think that's another thing. If I just do get prop, that also helps too. Like, just being able to get a property. But that's already built in. I don't need to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that. Prop call from I do need to worry about because it is a chain instance where I'm taking an object and calling from that object, right? Let's see. I wish this would work, but this just evaluates to null, which is unfortunate, it feels like. I can do game manager.call something, but I can't really use like the call function on it, which is interesting. Interesting Godot functionality there. But let's say, for instance, we do we do like run game set, and then we make sure that we have all of our values set right. We take all of these game process values from game manager, and then we edit off of them. We could also make a dictionary of all of these, and then have functions maintain that. and then we can just prop call into that. That could be something, actually. It would be very, very weird, but it would kind of function. It would, in a way, kind of function. Crudely, but it would. I think. This has always been a difficult issue, right? I think the issue stems from having these values in Game Manager, when they probably shouldn't be. I'm not sure how to handle that. Because... yeah, I do need to reference these at some point. But how do I reference them from here? I'm not sure. I'm not too sure, in fact. Because... let's see. So if I use the one strategy I had, right, which is to make a dictionary of these values. The problem is that these aren't initialized yet. There is no object to attribute to at the moment. So that wouldn't work. That just doesn't work, right? Because there's no object to attribute to until I make that object. And the problem is I think that reference does get overridden from time to time. So I don't think that will end up not maintaining persistence forever. It will eventually break. So the issue is, of course, referring to these things from a distant landscape. Part of the thing is that stuff like fetch unit and stuff, there's very few things that actually refer to this within Game Manager. Game Manager having these things locally doesn't actually help Game Manager. Game Manager really doesn't interact with this stuff. It doesn't actually need to be here. Game Manager at this point is just the game load manager. Its main purpose is just to have all the file loading commands and all the file manager. It's more of a file manager, which I might rename it to, because that is probably more apt to refer to this. So that's an important thing to make distinction of. So, I'm trying to think about the best solution to all of this, because I don't know what the solution is. That's my issue. I don't know what the best way. I don't know if anyone has ever had this issue before. Like, has anyone ever experienced this before? Is this like an issue that does exist? Because I certainly don't know if what I'm looking for is an issue anyone has experienced before. The issue of having global, essentially static classes and trying to refer to their properties in an abstract manner using the get method, default to the object class. Like, that is a specific issue that I don't know if anyone has ever had. Like, what is one to say here? Like, has anyone ever experienced this issue? Has anyone tried to do this with Godot? I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know. Like, what does validate property do? Does this help me? I don't think it does. I don't know if it does. No, I don't know if the person in the chat is still here or not, so just put in the chat if they will revisit the stream later. I should mention this game is. Oh, I'm coughing pretty badly. Ooh. I'm sorry about that, but this game will be available. It is already available on GitHub. You can recompile it. You can compile it up yourself. It's just not pre-compiled because at this point it's very bare bones. Once I get some of these major issues sorted out, I will definitely make a compiled version, and it would be able to be usable by people. At this point, you can kind of run combat with it, right? Like I have shown how you can run combat. You can do all of the basic manipulations. There's just no status infliction at the moment. And of course you can like add any skill you want, and it automatically shows what those skills look like. Right, we can just skill, and we can show like knife 1 and stuff. Like there is all of this stuff is built in, but it's just not fully implemented. Right, like, we can't do burn detection yet. I don't think we're gonna get the statuses today. I don't think statuses are gonna be something we're gonna get to for a while, just because I want to get the groundwork done. So while we're trying to figure out how we want to treat these in-game processes, right, which I might just move to functions for now. I think just moving it to functions for the time being is probably the safest thing now. Later I will find the solution, but I think this is the best bet, and just kind of better, because actually if everything is referenced within the function scope, that's fine, and everything derives from that is better. And I'll probably use some other things too that can maintain. What I will say though is our next issue after that, which is gonna be in a couple minutes, our big next issue is something called sequences. Sequences are a really, really scary topic for me. Essentially, what a sequence is it something like, for example, the end scene condition, right? When this end scene condition triggers, this is a special method call that causes a sequence, right? End scene method is triggered specifically as a condition, which is kind of like hit and stuff, where it's going to specifically trigger by the main function, by the main game engine, and it is a sequence of further method calls. Every block here is one method call. Everything is a method call, right? Everything is a function. And it has to run each of these. But then part of it is also things like temp variables. How do I handle that, right? And I decided that I'm probably going to run it in the same vein as Scratch, which kind of lacks them in an unfortunate manner. But it is kind of the best way to handle it. I don't know how else at the moment, right? I'm starting to figure it out. I think there is a strategy to it. I think I have an idea, which is basically just kind of the stack system I was talking about last time, but more advanced, where it will check lower scopes, which are like, you know, the wider scopes, right? So like if I'm in the scope of like checking burn / end scene, I can also check burn overall to see if this value exists within that scope. And I think that might be the best way to handle this, but that's a very difficult topic to answer. I'm not sure what the answer is, right? But that's sequences, right? We're going to get to sequences very shortly. So we're going to actually just copy these, right? And that's kind of a shock, right? And I'll even do, not file tree. File tree I will not copy over. But the reason for this is pretty simple, right? The simple reason for this is I don't really know how else to reference these. So by just putting them here, it just saves me a couple issues. So I can now remove all of these instances of Game Manager, right? Because now it's just scene +1. I still need add push console, right? I can't really do prints in the thing yet, but we'll deal with that later. I can do string of scene, unit list, the unit list. This is a substantial change, but I think this is for the better. Because anyways, I always refer to these from the scope of functions, not from the scope. I don't really use them in data tree in the user in the game manager. The game manager literally does nothing at this point. It's a very everything's in functions now. It kind of in a way makes the code a bit less readable, because now I don't know when things are like game manager attributes, right? That was kind of a benefit, honestly, because like now you can't tell. It's kind of hard to see, right? Before it was like, okay, now I know that I'm dealing with things that are like a very big game data, right? This is all big game data here. But now you don't get that. You just kind of see that it's all these like random dictionaries. And you don't know what they are. At a glance, anyways. Stuff like fetch data I do need to maintain, but that's going to be a separate issue where I'm going to redefine how data tree works, which will also be to our benefit here, right? There's going to be a lot of big changes that are going to fix a lot of big issues. Oh, did I not move the console here? I probably don't need to move the console here. That's a good point. So if I remove all of this, and I instead do functions.unitList, and now I can start going through this as well. And instead changing everything here to functions dot. Instead of GameManager.UnitList, it's functions.UnitList. Which is a bit of a weird way of coding this, but I just need to make this sure that this theoretically works before I go on a limb and really try and do this more complex data manipulation here. Okay, you can't do Control Shift S to save all. I don't know. I want to do file path for now. File tree I won't worry about because file tree is also going to get redefined too. And for the time being, I don't want to worry about that. That's going to be a big undertaking, right? And that'll be a very major undertaking. But that's how it goes sometimes. Bam, 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 bam. Okay. So bam, 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 bam. So what should I do next? Sequences, right? Now that I've resolved, well actually I should check something now. I should be able to now do a very intricate thing, right? I can now be able to do functions.call j, and I can call j the method which is named prop call. And I can now, with prop call, let me actually just look at my things that I copied in the past. So with prop call, I can now create an array within prop call, and I can prop call the value, which is, in functions, I can prop call the unit list, right? And I can prop call unit list, and, what else can I do with that? Well, for now, I can just do get. I can just do get unit list. right? I can just call J, get unit list, and it should theoretically work. Maybe not. Huh? Did I mess something up here? I don't know. So unit list here, I should be able to get that dictionary, right? I should be able to do functions dot get dictionary get that I cannot speak. Get unit list. That's essentially all I'm doing, so why is that not working? I can't get the unit list. That's not helpful. Has the unit list not been edited? I should be able to fetch data. Let's see. Ooh. Oh, this is still getting... It's still hanging off of things that don't exist anymore. What? Why is it like that? I removed those, so why is it pretending like they still exist when they don't? Interesting. Okay, yeah, it doesn't error me out on these. So I really have to check to make sure every single... I thought I would have... But dice list is in the current scope. What? Oh, well now it's functions, right? Interesting, interesting. It for some reason doesn't flag those as an error. That's so weird. Because I deleted them from here. Like that's not here anymore. So why is it pretending like those aren't errors? There should be functions. Functions. Game manager still has console log though. That should be everything. Let's see. If I just control F game manager. Dot search. Okay, this is supposed to be functions. This is all stuff that I don't need. It's been re-attributed. It is very hard to refactor things, it would seem. Well, I guess I could have just like I could have just let's see, if I do game manager here, I could just like replace any instance of game manager dot like dice or whatever and then change it, but this is all correct, so I should be able to see in this speed. And there are 2 units, so why are we having an issue there? That's not good. Why can't I get unit list? Oh, I'm not printing it. I'm straight up just not printing it. No wonder nothing's happening. I'm not printing the result. Only from me can you get such levels of inability. Okay, so that works. So I can get the unit list, but I can't prop call off of the unit list, right? I can't prop call something in the unit list. What if I want to see the unit's data set? I can't actually check that, but I can now prop call from, right? Prop call from, and we can call from, so let's remember the args for, prop call from the object, and we get the property. Let's see. Now we can't actually do a get from. I don't think we can do a get from, so... Or we just like... No, we can just prop call. We can technically just do prop call a unit list. We can always prop call unit list and then get the data tree, I think is what it is called. Or data set. And that's null. Oh, I'm supposed to do... Oh, I'm supposed to do prop call from unit list. I'm supposed to get. And then when I get, I have to do the get method, right? Ooh, wait, am I wrong here? I have to prop call from unit. Which property am I get? Well, I'm getting... Maybe I have to make a prop from too. A prop from method. But I'm not sure. So if I do prop call from, and I do unit list, and then I get the data set, and then I do duplicate, this should theoretically duplicate data set on me. No. Oh, is this supposed to be another? I think this is supposed to be another array, right? Oh, the method, right? No, method is duplicate. So I don't have any args, do I not? Huh. What am I doing wrong here? Oh! Oh! I have to prop call from... and then I can just give it an object. I do functions dot call j. Well, no, I have to do in here. I have to do prop call, and then I have to prop call or get property. I just have to get a property, which is unit list. That should work. Still no. From dictionary to object. Oh, I have to get the first element of it. Right. I have to get the first element. So I do have to prop call. And the property is unit list. And the method is get. And I have to get the value 0, right? Or I have to get a1. A null value. What am I doing wrong here? So I'm doing prop call from, and the object I'm trying to get is the object which is unit list, and I'm getting a1, right? Let's see if I print. Let's see if I print this, right? So it is... Where's my mismatch casing here? Do I have any? What? Where's my issue here? Also, hello everyone who decided to tune in. I am currently debugging nonsense. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? What do you mean expect? Is there an extra? Am I missing one? No. Oh, because it's method here, so method is prop call. Oh, is that my issue? Cause I tried to make this, but that's supposed to defer the call. Okay, that should be fine though, right? So prop call, you just get a1, right? Does that at least output? It outputs no. Okay, why am I doing this? Well, that's back then, right? So print something. Let's just print something here. Let's try that again. Okay, so this is no evaluation. So it's saying that A1 is null. Am I doing something wrong? Right, if I do functions dot unit list dot get a1. That should theoretically give me a value, right? That should theoretically give me the object. Am I wrong? Yeah, it gives me the object. It's just here it's two stringing it, right? It's doing a two string. So why is prop calling it not giving me that result? That's curious. What did I do? So with temp all, I can just call jprop call temp all, and I can do like set, right? I can do like set, and then set the value, right? Maybe it's some other syntax error that I made. That's the interesting thing, is this is kind of a tough thing to work with. So I'm not particularly sure where my mistake is. I'm making a mistake somewhere, but what is my mistake? Because I think from all I can see here is my because this argument here, my arg for prop call. No, but it's prop call arguments, the property, the method, and then the arguments as an array. Or do I just put this as a non-array? Oh, is that what it is? Yes, yes. Okay, so my issue was I'm supposed to just get a1, right? And then here when I do prop call from, and I do the arg array, that's because it automatically does a call v here. So I should be able to get the unit and then get the data set. So there's the data set. There we go. Well, what if I want to call get off of unit list? And if I want to get that object and do a get method off of it, right now it's only properties, so I do have to get a prop function command. An object call, an object call, which is kind of going to be the same as prop call, but it's going to be an object instead of a property. Let me just check if object has method. If it doesn't have the method, we return null. Otherwise, we're going to do a callable. Oh, and then we'd have to get the method, right? Okay, what do we do here? I think we can just do object, call from object, right? We can just do a... We can just do object.callv. Where with call v, we do the method as in here. Like so. There we go. That's an object call. Look at that. Object call. So now we can, instead of doing this, right, we should be able to get the exact same data by instead of doing prop call from, we can do an object call from the object and just getting the data set, right? So then we get the data set. Well, the method is going to be we object call and then we get data set. And it prints the same thing. It works. Look at that. It works. Awful screenshot, but you get the point. So now we have a lot of different ways to refer to something. Awesome. Things are looking good for us. Things are looking very good for us. Nice, nice, nice. So, these are two methods to do the same exact thing. And that's good. We want multiple ways to do something because sometimes not always the main way is the best way. And if we have primitive values, what are we to do, right? So for instance, we can also do something like we can do the get command and we can just we can get, and then we can then just get the value of, what's it called? We can just get scene. I think scene should work. If we do call J scene. Yep, it will give us scene of 0. Oh. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm realizing a couple issues, but I think they're mostly fine. Nested og, yeah. Call J has to have this args array, unfortunately, but that's like just because of the nature of it, of nested. Let's see. What else is there of note to mention here? Okay, so this is now when we can start getting into more complicated work, right? So obviously we do need to make all of our divide and basic commands like that. We're going to start looking at that now next. And maybe we can even get the statuses today. We can maybe get some burn infliction going on, but not yet, right? So we're going to start making all of these basic mathematical functions. Very childish, but very, very important. So subtract f, and then this is just floats. Because I think you can still pass instant to floats and it will automatically convert. And then from there we just have multiplication and division. Maybe instead of subtract we can do difference, just so it's a bit shorter. Diff f. Subtract f. Mult f. Div, and then div f. And there's a couple other mathematical things we should probably also do, like modulos and stuff, but you know. That's a slow going process. Or we can even add them now. I think is there any built-in modulo? No. Oh, you can't do a mod f. So then we just do x and then xbef. Is xbef data type? What is that? Okay, there's a lot of like at export. I'm not finding it. I'm not sure what that means, but I'll just do X. I don't know why X is doing that. Why is X look like that? Oh, because it was already an exponent. Gives the exponential function. Oh, it's to the power of e and stuff. Oh, it's pow. It's the pow function. I forgot that pow exists. That would exist. So we don't even need exponent. But there isn't a mod function. And then there should be a... I'm just going to make a pi function. Which then just returns pi. The e function, it just returns e. I don't know if you can get the mathematical constant e, so you can just, I mean, you can just always do x1. I don't think you're ever gonna need pi, but I just have it in here for anyone who needs it. It's just a funny thing. You can call the pi function, and it will give you the value of pi. If you somehow need it for any adventure of yours, we have it just for you. And that's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. I mean, hey, why not, right? Why not? So that's pretty good. We're looking at a pretty good start to things. Very, very nice. Okay, so other things I need to get done. So we can now do basic manipulations. Bam, 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 bam. Ooh, I just thought of something. I'm realizing some issues with the tagging nature that we have. Well, that's a fun question to answer. How to make the tagging system better. I think we can start to work on like basic hit functionality though. I think we can make basic hit functionality. So, on the concept of hit functionality, right? The idea is pretty simple. It's a hit instance is just a sequence. It is just a sequence that that does a couple things, right? So in this case, it does stagger, and then last stream I decided to set the variable x to 10. It does nothing with the variable x, but it can. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make another command, and it's going to deal damage based on x. So it will deal damage, and in here it is going to have another function inside of it, which is going to be the getVar function, and the getVar function is going to have the parameter x. We are going to get the variable x and deal damage based on x. So what we should see is that it will do the roll damage, it will then do 2 stagger damage, it will then set the variable x to 10, and then deal regular damage by x, which should be 10. This is just for demonstration purposes, right? This would be very broken if it was real, but that's the point. We're trying to test to make sure things work. And deal stagger here should also be a array of arguments, of which is only 2, and then we can start to just regular case these. Let's see, if we go over here, there's also status interject, but you get the point. Maybe I'll test case sensitivity in the future to make case sensitivity for the first letter ambiguous, but that could be an issue. Anyways, this is looking pretty good. We're going to be able to inflict damage soon. So let's actually make the function that we want, right? Deal damage. So deal damage, and then amount int. And the thing about the concept of a deal damage function is it employs the concept of a target, right? It needs a target, and this is actually an issue, right? Something like deal damage, here it is not specifying who that target may be, right? So what should one say to that, right? Because we can always have, I think what we're going to do is we're going to have something like this, right? Target is a string, and it equals empty for now, right? And in the concept of an empty string, this means that the target was not specified. We will look elsewhere for who the target should be. Now, why an empty string? Why not set the default value to be some other thing, or have the thing that's passing deal damage to implement that argument? Well, we can't do that because, of course, again, these functions have to work with the concept of function chaining, and when you do that function chaining ability, you remove the chance to, before entering deal damage, test that issue. So we can't really do much about that. Having this argument here that is set to a null string, a unit cannot have a null string name. If it does, then we don't care about you. You are an edge case. Null string name, get out. But in the case that that is not it is a null string case, we can say, hey, that must mean that probably no value was provided, and we're going to work with that. What do we do in response? We are going to find that target based on who triggered the hit tag, right? The hit sequence is going to have a source trigger. And in this case, it is going to come down to what we have defined a couple days ago in the execute clash command and the attack unit. Attack unit is a string name. That is the attack unit. The defense unit is the receiver, right? That is the target. So this is where we do caster target. Caster is the causer of actions. Target is the expected recipient. Okay? So that's how we work on this. So it's a sender-recipient dynamic here. That is kind of the goal, right? So let's work on that then, right? So with this deal damage, which is I think it's just like, yeah, okay, I didn't use the args anywhere. In the case that the target is not specified, we are going to have something, when it comes to the sequence, right? A sequence like hit. Hit is a predefined sequence. When the sequence hit is called, we are going to actually make temporary references. References of caster and target. And target could be an array, and we're not going to deal with that yet. That's going to be a problem. But we're not going to deal with that. So, essentially what's going to happen is in deal damage over here, we are going to say if target is empty, then target will instead equal, and we are going to go into references, and then we are going to get target. Right? And then if target is null, then we return. We have failed, right? We have failed in that instance. We cannot deal damage. Otherwise, we will now deal the amount of damage, right? And this is just regular damage. There is no resistances to this. So this is just regular damage dealing. Yeah. That is pretty cool. Actually, we can probably specify the type somewhere else, but I'm not going to deal with that just yet. So deal damage will then, if target's equal to null, then we return. Otherwise, we can now do unit list dot get, and we can get the target. So so then we can now do, okay, it doesn't like that. So var unit data, or more so target data. Okay, why does it have an issue with get? You just have to assume that this doesn't throw an error. I'm not sure if it does or doesn't. Let me check something real quick. In dictionary. I'm not sure. Does it throw an error? I don't know if it throws an error or not. Interesting. The fixed string. Oh, you can actually do that too. You can just... That's actually cool. Wait, hold on. So you can just do unit list.target. Oh, well, I guess because it's not a fixed string, yeah. Oh, I see now. I see now what they mean by that. I'll probably make like a safe way to get unit and stuff. Let's actually make that real quick. It's just gonna be a function which is called get unit data, and it's gonna be from a string called unit, and then it is going to return a dictionary. So we are going to very simply do var unit is going to be equal to a unit which is equal to unit list dot get unit. If unit is null, then return empty. And then from there, if that is not an issue, then we can return the data set. Otherwise, oh wait, the damage thing doesn't really work, does it? Yeah, so I don't really need this yet. What we can instead do is we can just do console. We can do a damage unit prompt. Right, there's already a damage unit prompt thing that exists. I forgot it existed. Over here, there is a signal emission that we can do. And I forgot it existed. Oh, it's entangled, that's why. Okay, so then we can just emit single damage, and then same thing with stagger. So those now work. Right? And actually what I want to do... Ooh, that might be a problem. Just thought of something, but it's not gonna play out too nicely. The only issue with the console that everything in the console is a string, and you have to like re-scrub the data to get rid of like the strings and stuff. De-stringify it, which is like just not a fun time. I think I know what I can do. I think I know what can be done. So my idea, right, is I'm gonna make a function which is called which is gonna be execute function. So like exfn, and execute function is gonna take in one arg, and that arg is gonna be a JSON.parse string, and that is going to be a function call that goes into call J. I am slamming my desk, and that is very obnoxious for you. Very so. Desk slam ASMR thing. Okay, so we go to console, and we can make a new method. We can make a new function because we have a lot of commands here. A lot of them are varying levels of not helpful but kind of funny. But that's kind of me just trying to figure out how to make this system. We are getting there. I think honestly, week 2. We're not going to look too much different than week 1. We're going to look about the same. But I'm thinking week 3, we should be pretty much ready to have a functional system. And I should mention on that, right, like week 2 is going to pretty much be done around mid next week. I'll probably do one more stream this week for this game, and then do another. I think I'm not going to be streaming Thursday. Wednesday, I might do another stream of this, or I might do it Friday. And then I might take a second day off, or I might do a different thing. I don't know. Next week I'll probably do the last 2 days, right? Depending on how time goes. And then starting from August, the last day, I'll probably do August last day. I'll probably do the third week. I'm probably gonna do 1 week of like a 7-day set of streams every 2 weeks, so I can also do some other content in between. And I can also just like drop stream days sometimes, right? Because like, I can't really do 7 days a week of this game development. It's better to just do 7 days or 2 weeks, which is like, you know, 7 days and then of this, maybe like 3 or 4 days of other stuff, and then like whatever else. Probably like breaking things. But you know, that's how it is. That's kind of the idea. You'll see more about that later. Starting from 2 weeks from now, I'll probably actually have concrete schedules, maybe. I might start doing that. Because I'll actually have a much more scheduled time frame to create a actual schedule. Right now, everything's in limbo, because I'm just like, I have to do things whenever things happen, and that's just how it is. So my schedule has to be very flexible. I can't just like stream whenever I want. I kind of have to like fight my way into like, hey, I need to. I kind of want to stream during this random day, and I have to fight that. But that won't be the thing forever. Oh yeah, this is the edit unit command with the odd pause. Pretty cool stuff. I put it near here. Yeah, honestly, I'll put it between search commands and like edit unit command. Oh, like search unit right after this. Start scene, save dice, remove speed dice, roll command. Actually, like, right before roll command, that lines up to where things are in function. So this is going to be the execute function command. And then if args.size is less than 0, then it is very simply going to be an instance of oh, it has to be less than. If it's less than 2, then we return 1 missing args. So what's going to happen is args1 is going to be a JSON.parseString. So we're going to involve data is going to be equal to JSON dot parseString, and it's going to be args1. So this is going to be a very fun time, right? No B-type variant. Interesting. Okay. Is it? Parse-string. Oh, returns a variant. That's why. Ah. Parse-string just... I was assuming it would be giving you a dictionary, but I guess not. There's a lot of ways that JSON cannot always be a dictionary. So what happens, right, is that it should be a dictionary type. And what we're going to do with this execute function is we're just going to take that function call, and we're just going to go into functions, and we're going to call J, and we're going to just call the method. We're just, what method? I think we just do is nested array. We just do is nested arg, because it will be a nested arg. And then it will start spitting things out. We'll just do is nested arg, and it will do whatever it has to do until it breaks down. Essentially that. Wait, does that work? Hold on, can I be very quick about this and then just do functions dot is nested arg, and then spit this out? Let's see if that works. Am I silly? Am I going a bit above and beyond what I am supposed to be doing here, right? Which is probably the case, but let's see. So we're gonna make the command, which is called execute function, and the args are gonna just be as simple as that, and then this. Bam, 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 bam. So theoretically speaking, I should be able to execute the function empty, and it should work. Otherwise, other stuff... Oh, okay, that will break. Yeah, makes sense. Parse JSON failed. Error at line 0. Okay, yeah. At least it doesn't flag an error. So if I let's execute a basic function, right? What function should we execute? Let's execute the function... Oh, we can execute the function scene, right? We can just execute the function... scene, which is going to be the function call. I think we can just do scene. I think we can just do the function scene, and then we just have an empty array. Oh, that's not one giant continuous. Oh, right, spaces, space parsing. Yep. that's gonna happen. Okay, so what we need to do, right, is we have to take, we have to take all args past the first arg, and then we need to join them together into one massive super arg. I kind of forgot that was like a thing that had to be done. Interesting. So I'll only name the first arg, right? It's gonna kind of have issues because like, we can't really stop this from happening. That's just like the nature of it. So when we do execute functions, we're gonna have to do like args dot so we're gonna do args dot, what do we do here? Can we do like a subarray? A slice beginning from integer 1. Yep. So arg slice 1, and we're just gonna have to do like can I do string.join? Oh, I have to do this dot join args dot slice 1, and that's what we have to parse. Like that. Isn't that magnificent? Let's see if that works. So I should be able to do now is I should be able to execute function, and the function is seen with the args as such. And it crashed. What did it not like? Did I do something wrong? Parse JSON fail. Error at line 0. Expected true, false. Got left bracket. Oh, the left brackets get right. So we have to also, on top of that, we have to parse string. The parsing this string, which in addition to all of that, we need to replace left bracket with an actual left bracket because we had to get rid of it to prevent the rich text processing. Let's see. Execute function seen like that. It doesn't seem to work. When I do seen, we're still on scene 1, so clearly this isn't working. When we go to isNested, we should be able to say, okay, isNested, call this, and we should let's print the key and then the arg key, right? So I can actually figure out what's going on here. I don't know what's going on, right? It is doing the scene with this with this argument. That's our arg. Our arg is an empty string. So has method, does it have the method? It should, right? So we should be able to print the method at this point, and it should print scene, but it doesn't. Do we not have the method scene though? Or is it called something else? Oh, is it called, what is the scene method called here? Scene start. Oh, it's called scene start. That's why. That makes way more sense. So if we do scene start, right? We can do, okay, we can do that. We can do scene start as much as we can spam this, right? Oh, I did execute SN, not execute FN. So that works. Awesome. So we can just very simply do, we can execute any set of commands we want to execute. Look at that! Isn't that awesome? So now we can remotely execute commands as much as we want from over here. And this is when we start getting into sequence call, right? So let me show you something with sequence call. Theoretically, we should be able to do a sequence call where we can now do, let's do a sequence, and our args are going to be as follows. The first arg is going to be the method scene start with the argument empty, and then our second element of the sequence is going to be scene start with empty. And it works! Look at that, we can do sequences now. We can do a sequence. We can do a sequence of any length we want. Isn't that awesome? So now, for instance here, we just ran 2 scenes at once. Yeah. So execute function, the sequence of scene start and scene start. Each of these objects is a method. And that's how that feels so good. That is functional. That functions. So let's do something, right? We can do execute function. Oh, but we can't really do prints from returns, right? The execute function here doesn't really return us anything. Because this nested doesn't really return. It returns the it returns the is nested. The call j. Okay, so we can. Let us do this. So we are going to game manager functions console. We are going to do a. We are going to add log, and there's going to be add style result. Alright. That feels very, very nice, you know? I'm just gonna like break this up so you guys should read what this says. That's probably something I should probably do more often just so things are a bit more readable, you know? But yeah, that's the result. So when we do this, right? We can now do something like execute function, scene start with the with no arguments. Oh, yeah. Var return equals, and it's going to equal this function here. Let's see how that looks. Oopsies. So execute function. Scene start. And the result is null. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now what happens if we execute the function of setVar, and the var is going to be x, and the value is going to be 10. Right? There's no value there, but then if we set it to 20, we should get the old value, 10. Gives it to us as a float, but that is to be expected, unfortunately, from JSON return. We have to deal with it. But what if we do execute function, and then we do get var, and then we do x? We get 20. And now we can do execute function, sequence, which is going to be a sequence where the first element of the sequence is set var, and we can set the var. What do we want to set the var to? We're going to set a var, which is going to be called y, and it's going to equal 0. Okay, pretty cool. Now what are we going to do? We are going to then do get var, and then what are we going to get? We're going to get y. And then, what are we going to do? We are going to set var. And what are we going to do with set var, you may ask? You're going to set the variable z to another function. Ooh, what's the function? It is going to be add f. And the function's arguments are going to be get var. It's going to be, so the first argument is going to be get var. And what variable are we going to get? Y. Okay. And what is our second element? 5. And then we're going to actually do this for the variable x. Okay, something broke there. I don't know what broke. But you can see the general philosophy, right? You can see the philosophy of this. Let's actually compose a command here. Let's make a function which is sequence, right? And it's a sequence of functions. What functions do we want to sequence up? Well, we want to do the set var, and it is going to be set var of y, and it's going to be 0. Okay? And then we are going to get var. And we are going to do... Okay, we can just get y, right? So this should already work on its own, right? This should work on its own, theoretically. Spits out no. Did we make a casing error? I'm not sure. Oh, because sequence does always returns no, does it not? So if I do execute function and I do get var and we get the variable z, or get the variable x at this point, it is 5. Okay, so it is 5. Okay, let me change something real quick. Let me do something here. When we run a sequence, I mean, sequences don't really need a return, per se. Like, it's a useful thing to some degree, but I don't know. Okay, let's see, let me think. If we go to the concept of sequence, it's just this. What should we return for sequence? We can return the last... We can probably return the last value, right? So var, val, and then val is equal to this. And then we just return the last value, right? Just give it, just so there is any return value, right? So there's any amount of return value. To some degree, or we can return every single... We can return in a sequence every single method return. Is that useful? Probably not. I'm not sure. There is something useful about it. Where a sequence does return something, and then you can use that return for something else. It is useful, actually, yeah, to have a built-in return system here. I do also need to make an if-else system too. This is true. I need to make an if-else argument. Yes. Ooh, that's gonna be fun. So we're going into like really like functional territory where it's like everything, like, and all if statements have to be a function now. So let me actually make that real quick. Function if-else. And the if-else is going to have the query, which is a boolean. I'm misspelling a lot today. Query boolean true case is going to be a variant is a true case, and then a false case. And then we return true case, if query, else the false case. That is the entirety of the if-else block, right? It is that primitive of a thing. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty useful thing to have, you know? Our little if-else case, and our if-elses can now chain up to more things. Very cool. And then we can even have an iterator, right? Let's have a for loop, right? Right, so then we can have a for, we can have a loop, and the loop is going to be, how do we want to do the loop system? Do we just like loop over an array, right? Like a loop array, and we can always do it with the range command. And I think we can just do the range function at any time, right? I think range, like 10, just because this is in itself an array. Well, so it's range 10. It does return an array of ints. So we will just loop over an array. And then for each part of the loop. Oh, the problem with the loop is I don't really have a way to do a reference system. I'll deal with that later. Yes. I don't really know. I can do a while loop because whiles don't keep something necessarily in them. And that is an important piece of data. Yeah. It's very much like scratch loops, though. It's very much like scratch loops. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. So for now, we'll just do an array, and then commands, or something else. So then we'll just do for each element in the array. We are just going to have data for now. So a loop is kind of like a sequence, but instead of explicitly being like a sequence, also I'm gonna move these next to sequence, right? These should be next to sequence. So like instead of the case of sequence, where is it angry? I don't know why it's angry about anything. It shouldn't be angry anymore. So the thing about sequence is it's basically just running through a laundry list. Loop is running the same command a certain set of times where the command can then be itself a sequence, right? It can then be its own individual sequence. All the commands is instead, I don't know. There's something to be said, but I can't think of it. And then, finally, there's also while, right? Function, while loop, and then the while loop is the query, bool, and then commands, where it is going to be var, val, while the query is the case. It is just going to do val is equal to is nested arg commands, and then we are going to return the val at the end of it all. Awesome. So let's actually try this, right? So we can do execute. So we can now do an execute function, and we can execute the function loop where the array is going to be equal to the command range with the argument of 10, right? So that is our range. And the command we are going to run is going to be a single command, which is scene start empty, as follows. Something didn't work there. I think it's because if I do range, what happens if I do range 10.0? Does it not like that? Oh, I got rid of the function. Let's remake it over here. It's going to be the loop function, and its arguments are going to be range, where the range is going to have the value of 10, and then the next part is what command are we going to run, and it's going to be scene start, and the scene start command is not going to have any specific args to it, like that. No to array. Oh, this is supposed to become... am I doing something wrong? So range here, just resolve. Loop. Did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong here? What if there is nothing here? Simplify the question before we try and go further. Okay, so range 10.0, but it should still give an array. Well, firstly, loop doesn't seem like it's running through every single element a certain number of times. Like, it should be for each A in an array, which is the array of 10, 20, 30. And there's 3 elements in there. It does run 3 times. And it should be running the isNested arg for the commands. Right, because our commands is null. Why is it null? What? Huh? What do you mean, loop commands null? Explain to me why. So I did do something wrong here. I may have messed up somewhere. But I'm trying to execute the function, right? And our array is here. Maybe because it needs an array, it's also considering this as part of the array? No, but it's not. It's very clearly not. Oh, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Range 10 does seem to work, so... I can probably do... Hold on. Let me backtrack a bit before I forward track again. I don't really know what I'm doing at the moment. Let's do something like execute function. Let's actually execute the function of print, where we are printing out the function range of value 10. That should work. It doesn't print what I think it should be printing. Well, first of all, it's also we're still printing out our key arg here. So our arguments for range is just 10, obviously. So can we not use the print function? Am I doing something wrong? What am I doing wrong? The SotCIE works fine. Print function. Because we're essentially doing call the print. Oh, is it not just called print? Is that why? Oh, because range isn't something you can call. What? There isn't a range method? Huh. Well, that's interesting. So there's certain methods you can't call. You can't call some of those default methods? Oh, why is it like that? Why? What do you mean I can't call POW? What? There's certain methods you can't call? That's annoying. That's very annoying indeed. There's no print command. That's very weird. That is quite weird indeed. I don't understand. Are there like certain methods that aren't allowed to be referred to in this manner? Sorry. That's why range didn't work, because range flat out wasn't giving us anything. Function generate. So we can do something like range. Alright, so I think something like call is these. Okay, so it's whatever these purple methods are. Which are part of global scope. So, okay, so the question is use call v for global scope functions. Does call v allow me to do that? So there's something about global scope. So does that mean something like max I can't do? I can't do like call. I can't like call max. Oh, it's so annoying. What? You can only call Godot functions? I guess it's like any function that's not part of global scope. It has to be functions that you've inherited from this, from the Godot node system. So you can't, like, any base thing, like, any global scope functions, right? Just like anything in global scope, which is a lot of functions. I don't know what to do. How do I call a global scope function like that? Do I have to make every single global scope function? Ugh, okay. I think I have to make a global scope. That's gonna be another day. There's gonna be another day where I'm actually just going to make every single one of these into a thing, right? Like every single one of these is gonna become a special file called global scope methods, because you can't access these through call v. You cannot use the Godot call by string name thing here, which is very unfortunate. So we're gonna make a very big file which is gonna handle all of this. All of this is gonna be handled by that. There is a part of it which should be, how do I use something like, how do I take in a, like, if I want to use range, right? Like, I want to return range based on the args array, but the problem is I'm going to be basically, if I return range of args, I'm returning it with the one argument being an array. Instead, I need to make each argument of a range be a different element of the array, which is not a very fun time. How do I handle that? Like, how do I handle that? I don't know. Is that even possible? Like, I think there's like a physical impossibility limitation here. I'm not sure. Is there no solution? Is there just flat out no possibility for me to find another means of resolving this issue? Because that's what I'm feeling right now, right? Because I want to call the range method with an args array, right? I could perhaps, when I do return call v, method args, but that isn't itself an array. Oh, well, it's doing call v. Does call v fix that issue, right, is my question. Okay, so each element of the call v args array becomes a separate argument. If I call v an args array in, I should be able to do that, and it should theoretically work. I'm going to test it. Let's see if range arg works. So we can do execute function range array, and okay, so we have to do the function called range array, and the element is going to just be 10. Can I convert argument 1 from array to int? So it's still causing that issue. I can't paste like the... Or do I have to do it like... Is that a syntax that works? Does that syntax work? No. I am genuinely not sure what to do. I'm not sure. I mean, I can just handle each thing respectively, right? So, okay. I just have to like handle each of these myself, right? But the problem is like stuff like print, right? A print method theoretically has like an infinite capacity, and I have no way of handling that, which is its own issue. Oh, increases decreases by steps of s. Interesting. So I can do. I just have to make this form of 3 ints, and then just make it so first int goes to, yeah, okay, so that's unfortunate. I don't like that. I do not like that at all. I think the problem is that global scope stuff functions off of overloaded method. We'll just do a simple range 2. We'll just do a range 2, and it will just be an int. And we'll just do a range for val. So then we can just do return range 2. So we can do execute function range 2, and it's range to 10. And there you go. So now we can execute the function, which is called loop, and then that is going to do what it's going to do is it's going to have the loop scenario, which is going to be the function that is range 2 and 10. And then the element, what it's going to do is it's going to do scene start, which has no arg. What? Error at 90. Did I mess up somewhere? Where did I mess up? Oh, oopsies. Wait, no. Unterminated string. So this is that. Okay, what did I mess up here? It feels like all of the it feels like all the scopes are done correctly now. Are they not? Execute the function loop, and then the first element of the array is the object of range 2, element 10, and yeah, okay. So parse JSON is still failing at line 0, undetermined, unterminated string. What does that mean? What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Oh, I see. I understand what you mean. Okay. So it's range 2 10.0 and it stops working. Why does it do that to me? So we're almost there, but there's something going on. Print E. Let's see. Let's print whatever A is. So each instance it is realizing the nested array. So what's wrong? Like, is nested arg? We should be able to print for is nested arg. We are constantly referring to the arg commands, right? A lot of null prints. Why are we having null prints? Oh, because the dictionary has already been resolved. The dictionary is already resolved before it gets to loop. I see. I understand now. Okay. So with sequence, it's like, sequence is... Wait, so sequence doesn't even care. Sequence doesn't need to do anything because the... Oh, I'm dumb. I forgot about that. I already realized the args before they even get implemented. Okay. I see the issues. So, essentially, none of this code actually runs, by the way. At least, like, it doesn't really do anything. It just kind of pretends to do something. Actually, it technically does something, but it can mess stuff up. Oh. Oh no. I remember. It's good that I realize now. I'm in a brain pause state because I just realized what I just did. Essentially, the args are being passed in, but it automatically collapses the args. That's like the whole point, is that you're supposed to pre-collapse the args so you have the values. So range, this becomes, you know, your range value of all of that. Right, that collapses, and then this collapses to null. Like, it already collapses, and it does the loop. That's the loop that we are doing now, is this unnecessary loop. So, yeah. What do I do? I can, in case, I can theoretically, I think sequence is different. Because, no, sequence is an array, it's args, each arg is a method. So all of these already are collapsing. This, like with sequence, it already collapses every single arg here. It collapses all of them before sequence actually, the command actually runs. The command is doing nothing. The command does nothing at all. It has already been resolved before anything else. Theoretically, if each arg is an array of one item, you can bypass, right? You can theoretically bypass. So that is in itself a thing. Your other solution is to have a multi-stacked. Though that would not work because then you wouldn't maintain order. Yeah, you can't do that. Oh, it's so... I realize why that works that way. But that's not how I wanted it to work. That's like the opposite of how I wanted things to happen. But it makes sense. You're automatically collapsing the argument that you are trying to use as your definition. I am in pain. That makes... So theoretically the if-else in this current system, if-else, it already collapses the Boolean into true or false. And then it already collapses the it already collapses the true and false states. So with the if-else, with this if-else command here, the Boolean has already been collapsed into true or false, which is fine. The Boolean should collapse into true or false by this point because it is collapsing in order. It collapses in order, but then the true block and the false block have already been collapsed. They are collapsed at that point already. So do I make like these basic functional blocks a different system? I don't know. That's a really big question. I don't actually know if I want to collapse them into anything else. Because like, how does that help me? Does that help me? So that's a good question. This is a really good question, right? So with like loop, for instance, I wanted to run SotCIE. I wanted to run this object block a certain number of times, right? I want to run the object block a certain number of times. So I need to make sure that I can collapse this, right? This can be collapsed. Although, should it be collapsed, right? Because now we have to talk about something called the while loop, right? The while loop, you cannot collapse the Boolean. Because if you collapse the Boolean is true or false. If the Boolean is false, the commands cannot run. If the Boolean is true, the commands run forever. And since the state has already been collapsed, you cannot change that. So really, the query itself should be a function block. It shouldn't be a Boolean. It should be a function block, or like evaluates to a Boolean, but it shouldn't preemptively collapse itself. So how do I handle that? How am I to handle that? That is a really tough question. What is the answer? This is important for the entire logic system. There is no other way to do anything else unless I make the logic system function. So the logic system must be able to function like this. In one way or another, we must get the if statement to... And the if statement... Maybe the if statement should... Well, the if statement can collapse, because the if statement is a one-time thing. It is not a repetitious loop. Maybe for loops, which sequence isn't really a loop. Like, sequence doesn't have to do anything. The sequence here literally doesn't need to do anything, because sequence automatically collapses in order of the sequence, right? The function sequence, it can just return. Like, there's nothing else that has to do. Like, all sequence has to do is it just has to exist. Right? That's all that needs to happen, because sequence automatically collapses by its very nature. I could probably even shorthand it to just like seq or something, because sequence is very much the essence of everything in terms of sequential command runs. Or with sequence, what I can do is sequence does not collapse itself. Its args are uncollapsible. I would retain the arguments of sequence until the sequence itself is fully ran, and it runs with the arg set. That is an alternative. Right? So then sequence is how loop and while loop operate. Loop and while loop operate off of the sequence base. Is that smart? I don't know. It's a tough decision. It's a very, very tough decision. What I am noticing, though, that I do like about the system is because it's purely, like, text manipulation based, there are a lot of options for a lot of things, right? Like, for instance, with these execute functions, I can execute the function to add a file. I can do that. I can execute the function where I go into Game Manager's file info, and then I actually go into file info and then find the specific path, and then edit the path to have a new file that then becomes something else, another function, another unit, another anything. I can actually straight up do whatever I want, which is so powerful. Like, there is a lot of power behind this system, I'm realizing. There are a lot of opportunities here. And I'm enjoying that so much. Like, there is a lot that I can do here. I'm loving this. But let's see if I can actually figure out this problem. Because the issue always comes down to how do I run everything here, right? So loop, my issue is I cannot collapse. Now there is a workaround, right? As of now, there is a workaround. I can do something like scene start, and then in addition to this object, I have a null property in the dictionary. Now what can I do with this, right? I can do something with loop where I will make a in here I will make a var temp command, which is equal to commands, and then what can I do with this, right? Commands is a dictionary. What options do I have? I can erase the empty key, right? And by erasing the empty key, I can then make it eligible for that cleansing operation, right? So now when I run this, it will actually do what you think it would. It doesn't. Ooh, okay, so why is it not working then? Okay, so it doesn't run anything anymore. That's curious. Because we are printing... Why do we print 0? Where does 0 get printed from? Hold up. What other prints do we have? The key. We are printing the key. And then... Okay, so we are printing... is nested. But what did we do before that? Are we printing in console on accident? Display skill command. Nope, not display skill. A bit up, a way up actually. I should find the execute skill. No, not execute. Execute function. I don't print anything here. So where's the 0 getting printed from? It's not getting printed from this, is it? No. Where is it getting printed from? Where else am I running a print method? This is the only print method here. There's no other prints here. Oh, get seen. Okay, I had to make sure. I still had that lingering on. So, what happens is the is nested arg is going to run this. It's going to collapse range 2. And then from there, what's going to happen is it is now going to run loop. So we can now print A, and what we should see is it prints each element here. But what is the, so we need to print what the temp command is. So we need to print temp command. What is actually in temp command? Because temp command should be collapsible at this point. It's printing, oh, erase? Oh, wait. Oh, I'm dumb. Oh, okay. So I need to do commands dot. It doesn't give me a new one. Okay, so I have to do temp command is that, and then temp command dot. Huh. Recursive equals set size sort values. Interesting. So that should work now. Temp command dot erase the empty key. And now with that, we should be able to run what we need to. And it runs the scene start 10 times. Okay. So that was what we should have been working with a lot earlier. The problem is, this isn't great. Right? If every single time we want to run a for loop, we have to kind of like almost mince our words and make this like weird block casing. It's kind of weird. Is it not? So what I think will happen, what I think should happen, is we can then make this another array. Wait, yeah, why didn't we just make this an array? The reason I didn't make it an array was the concept of sequences, right? The concept of a sequence. I can make that an array. That should be an array. Should it not? Because yeah. So my position here, my statement here is, yeah, I know what I need to do now. What I need to do is I don't need to do this. What commands needs to be is commands needs to be in itself an array. And for every single C in commands, we are going to then run the isNestedArg on that. Now, why do we do this? What we are making in essence is we are making a pseudo sequence. A pseudo sequence is what we're going to go back into Scratch real quick. We are going to go back into Scratch to show, because at the end of the day, this JSON system is essentially Scratch code. It's just Scratch code that is more useful to me, and it is more malleable and moddable and stuff. What the sequence is sequence is like any of these hat blocks. You put any amount of blocks in here, and the hat block rules it all. Sequence commands this. What is inside of a for loop, or maybe an if statement, or maybe a while loop, is you have a pseudo sequence, which is a sequence keeps the scope, right? The sequence is its own scope. If we think about it as in my blocks, what is a my block but a function slash method? This is what a sequence is, a function slash method. Anything in the function keeps the scope of the function slash method. That is your scope. Versus the world scope of the class, you are in this inner scope where you can have temp variables, theoretically. We'll deal with that later. But there's a pseudoscope here. If then has a pseudoscope of this stuff. This connects, like if I, okay, so I use the make comment because it kind of lets you have an arrow, right? So here, you see, this is kind of part of the if. It's a pseudo sequence, right? This is a separate sequence, but it doesn't have its own personalized scope. It is a pseudo sequence where its scope is the same as the overarching sequence. That is what is happening here, and that is what we are going to do. So by using an array, we have a pseudo sequence structure which follows the same structure of a sequence, which is an array of commands we run in sequence. Except, we are now running it in this separate manner. So now what we do is we actually put start scene as an array in this array, and that's all you need now. This is a very weird syntax, but that does work, and all we're saying here is the loop is going to take the range here, and it is going to operate off of that fixed. Now, in this case, the loop is a fixed range. It's not a malleable range. Unfortunately, it's not a editable range. Start scene is then the next part, where the scene start command is the only part of this pseudo sequence. So think of it as we are essentially saying repeat 10, and we are saying repeat 10 start scene. And this is essentially what we're making. Repeat 10 start scene. That is what this command is doing. And yes, it's a lot more text wordy. The ultimate goal is to make a block-based system that basically essentially makes this. We will make repeat 10 start scene, and it will give us the code loop range 2 10 scene start, and then it will do the scene start block as the only part of the pseudo sequence. If that doesn't make sense, then you'll see it in action soon enough. So all these other ones, commands, are arrays. And in essence, I can actually, I don't want to run the sequence command, because what sequence is going to be is sequence is those hat blocks, where sequence is specifically starting something new, a new scope step. So in this case, I can just run the 4 CN commands, right? We just run this. And finally, we can do the same for if else, right? All we have to do is we just need to make the raw val, and then we just do if query, and query can be made into an array as well, where, well, not really, it can auto collapse. It is allowed to do that. Well, actually, that can be dangerous. No, it can't be dangerous. The sequence step, and I'll show you how this is going to work. We're going to do something really cool. We're going to show off the power of this. This is actually really fun. I essentially kind of making an upper level language. Very inefficient, but very fun to make, I will say. A high level language that is certainly functional, I guess. So if query, then we are going to do one thing, else we're going to do another thing, and we are going to return val at the end of it all, but we are just going to do this for both cases. And I can probably turn this into a subblock, right? Which is kind of in the same vein as sequence. It is kind of like sequence, but it's not sequence, right? So I can probably make sequence run a subsequence, is what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna have to think about this. I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions yet, but that is a possibility that I do enjoy, right? I do enjoy that possibility of what I'm doing here. But let me do something cool, right? And I'm gonna actually real quick make a JSON just so I can show you. But let's make a function call, right? And we're gonna do the function loop. We're gonna make a loop function again. And what will the loop function do? The loop function is going to do a certain amount of sequences. So the first thing it's gonna do is it's gonna have a range, right? We are going to have the range and the range is going to be 10. Okay, very simple there. That is our loop command. And I'll do it fully expanded so then I can show you what it's like when we start to take away some of the steps of expansion. Even though this is a bit more illegible in some instances, one could say this is more illegible, but we'll get to that later. Now, what happens in the subsequence here? In the subsequence, we are going to do something very, very cool. We are going to do a couple things. We are going to first do a set var. And we are going to set the var x to... Well, actually, we're going to first, before we do this, hold up. We need to actually, before anything else, we have to do a sequence. This is going to be a sequence. Let's do a sequence here. Let's start with a sequence. And the sequence is first going to do this. It is going to set var, and it is going to set the variable x to the value of 0. Okay? Very cool. Very cool. Now, what we are going to do is... interesting. We are going to, after that, we are going to then do a loop command. Now we do the loop command. Now, what is our range? What is our array we operate on? It is going to be a range of value 10. Now, in the loop, what are we going to do in the loop? Right? What do we do in this loop? We are going to first do a set. We are going to actually do a we are going to set var, and the set var is oh, whoopsies! I need to make my a function block. We are going to do the set var, and we are going to set the variable x to the value of an add function, and the add function is going to add the values of get var and we're going to get the variable x, and then we are going to add to it the value 1. It's an iterator. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a way to print, in essence. I can actually, wait, hold on, I can just make a real quick print command, right? I do need to make a print command, right? I can then do a function, which is called print console. Oh no, we actually have add log, don't we? I don't think we have add log here. Let's do add log, and then we're just gonna do print text, and it's gonna be that because we're gonna do add log, and we are going to just add the log text. I think add log automatically converts it to a string. Oh no, it's actually console.add log. Oh wait, can we not do that? Hold on. You have to do game manager dot. Oh, can we do a... Oh, hold on. How did I do this last time? Oh, I did add push console, yeah. I had to add a push console. This is a bit scuffed coding, but it's okay. So when we can now do an add log, right? So now we can do in here, after we set the... So in our loop, after we do set var, we can now do another function call, which is going to be add log. And our add log is going to have the value. What are we going to give it? We are going to give it the value of get var. And what value are you going to get? X. And then, after that, we are now going to do a very fun thing, which is going to be, we are going to run an if-else block, and the if-else block is going to do this. The boolean, right, the boolean of our if-else will be, what should our boolean be? Oh, there's not really a way to do an equality statement, right? We do have to do an equality statement. Ah, there's so much. There's so much I'm missing. There's so much that's missing when I do this extra system. I have to define every single functionality. Let's make a function equals. Alright, equals. So if else, and the first element of if else is going to be the boolean here. We're going to do a boolean here, which is going to be equals. We're going to do an equals block. And what is our equals block value is going to be? It is going to be the values of our first value will be a get var, and as you would expect, it is get var x, and then our other thing, the other value in our equals block is going to be 5. Okay? So that's the first part. Then we have the true case. And in the true case, we are just going to do a command, which is scene start. And there are no things to scene start. Right? Very cool. And then in our false case, we are going to do an add log, which is just going to say nope. And that is a function. This is a function. A very big and bloated function, but actually not that complex of a function. So let's see if this works. So we're going to first have to compress this down to a single line, right? So let's compress this down to a single line real quick. Well, I think I can actually remove tabs very quickly. Yep. Okay, look at that. Very nicely removed every single tab. You can see that there's a lot of depth to this. Like there's a very very high hierarchy to everything here. I can probably just like up arrow and delete, up arrow and delete, but this is like I can do this, but there's like a high chance that I like miss a input and then I actually delete something critical, and then I'll be scratching my head trying to figure out what I got rid of. So it's kind of like scary. But that is the entire command, right? What happens if I paste this in chat? Oh, it's too long. I can't paste it in chat. That's curious. So now, what happens if I do this? Oh, it doesn't print anything? Aww. Convert node to array. In node loop. Okay, so in loop, we're trying to call loop, and we're trying to convert argument 1 into array. Expected arguments 1, but called it 2. Ooh, hold up. That's an interesting thing. Did we make some bugs? Sequence only has 1 argument. It's just an array. Oh, does sequence have to be a ... array? I think sequence has to be a ... args. Okay. Let's try that. I'm not sure if that works that way. Let's try it. Okay? So, sequence. Now, what is wrong with loop? It's trying to convert argument 1. Argument 1 is a range of 10. Is that not functional? Is that not what we've always done? Oh, is this a... No, that should be fine. This is what I've always done though, right? Is it not? Hold on. This brings up a great point of concern. Why is this not working? Oh, it's range 2. It's range 2, not range. Right. Make sure you name your things correctly. Okay. So I should just be able to change this to range 2 and it should all work. Okay. One nope, one nope, one nope, one nope, one nope. Ooh, okay, that's a bug. So it's not iterating. Why is it not iterating? Is it failing to collapse? Huh. What? Ooh, that's a bug. Why? Why are we having a bug here? So, we are setting in the loop, we are setting the variable x to whatever the value of x is plus 1. So, this collapse, so when we get to this, right, it's going to collapse this entire block. We are going to go into scene var, and then we are going, okay, so what should be happening here, right? Like, every single level, right, we are doing add, get var x, and then 1. I'm not getting the result as a return though, which is unfortunate. So I should probably make a way for me to print see that when I ever do a call v. Let's see. Let's do this. So, ooh, there's a lot of no's. I don't like that. That does not smell particularly nice. Oh, is it because we're returning? But okay, wait, hold on. No, but we should be fine. Hold on. Get val should just be returning the reference at get value. Yeah. Add returns this thing. Oh wait, can we like not do? Hold on. Let me try something. Is it like an issue of like execute function? If I do execute function add, and I do 5 and 5, does that break? No, it should work. Execute function add f. Okay, that should be fine. So let's take smaller and smaller pieces, right? So let's do a sequence here where we delete anything that has to do with anything after the loop. So the loop has this iteration. Let's remove the concept of this. So we removed a big chunk, which was the if-else. So what's going on here, right? We are doing set var x to 1, but why? So we are first starting off with this long sequence, and then set var x to 0. We set var x to 0. There was no previous value. We then loop, right? We are now looping. And when we loop, we are looping the range to 10, and that gives us our range there. We are now going to set the var x to the add of the get plus 1. So we are now adding get value of x and 1. So then we add 0.0 and 1, and then we get 0. So it might be an issue if I need to use addf. Let me try addf. Do I have to use addf here? That would kind of suck if it's like an issue of that. Nope, it's not an addf issue. After the first loop, it's like an auto collapse, which just doesn't make sense because it shouldn't auto collapse at this point, right? Like it doesn't collapse. It should be kind of a situation of we should be doing this addf at every step. we set the variable x to the addf. Oh, well, the previous value was 0.0, right? Like, I mean, that's like how it works. And then we log it, and it's now 1. But then why does it keep on trying to set the variable x to 1? So it's constantly setting the variable x to 1. It's not an addf issue. It's like collapsed at that point. It's like after it runs through it once, it is collapsed. Why is it like it's like after it runs through this once, it's been collapsed, which doesn't make sense. EXFN. So the command is just add log 1. Command set var x to 1. But why? Why is it like that? It's like put. Oh, because we're not making a deep copy. Are we not? Oh, we're not making a deep copy. Okay, I see it. So the issue is when we do this collapse thing with a nested arg, it's fine to replace the value in this instance and collapse it. But when we are doing this iteration thing, we are trying to prevent collapse. We are trying to prevent a collapse situation. So in these cases, we need to make a duplication. And edit off of that. So if I do duplicate deep, if I do like 2 cases that duplicate deep, if I do it for all of these, then it should be safe. It might be more sluggish. I don't know how much that's going to impact like performance. There's probably a good way to check like a long-term performance run on this. It counts up! So that's actually a good point. What happens if I do a really long range, like 1,000? Okay, so a lot of it is print statements are very long to run, right? It's very hard to run very big print statements. So we are going to remove print statements that we've been using up until this point. Okay, I think most of our bugs will be fixed at this point. There's going to be way more bugs, though. Who wouldn't guess? And then we'll also make it so this is now just going to return a thing here. So now we can run this with range 1,000 instead, right? So let's go for it. XFN, and it runs. Now with 10,000, it does take a very long time to run the whole loop. Right. Like it is taking a long time. I'm wondering how much it has to do with add log. Like I don't know if add log is choke point. If I remove duplicate deep, how much faster would that go? Out of a random curiosity, it just instantly runs because the JSON failed. What? Oh, because the entire thing is like that, yeah. Okay, let's count the seconds, right? Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 seconds. Let's try again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, I guess? I don't know, something like that. Now let's try it with deep copy. which also makes us run more computations because you know it actually doesn't collapse automatically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's about the same. I feel like, honestly. I mean, it's not a very deep manipulation, but there is a lot of inefficiency. I'm not sure how much that inefficiency has to do with my code in terms of the functional programming, or if it is an issue with the way I am doing my prints. Because printing always takes very long. Printing takes forever. What happens if I do remove the print, right? If I remove, let's change this, right? So first of all, we're removing this if else, right? Actually, let's test this if else, right? Can I paste this? Can I just paste this like this? Can I do xffn and then paste it? Yes, I can. Oh my goodness, look at that. So this is really cool. You can see that I go 1 nope, 2 nope, 3 nope, 4 nope, 5 SotCIE, 6 nope, 7 nope, 8 nope, 9. Yes, it works. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love it. I do love that a lot. Can I make this like, oh, that's like bad. Okay. I can't really do much about that, I guess. But it does, in fact, work. That is so going on our report card tonight. That's cool. That is really, really cool. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. That's really awesome. Let's go. So, very good stuff from that today. Today's a very successful day. Now, another thing I want to show with this, right? So first of all, I want to make a different version without the if-else. Let's remove the if-else real quick. And let's do the same thing, but we only do the log after our loop is finished, right? So after our loop is finished, at the very end of the sequence, we are then going to run add log. How long would this take? If I do this for 10,000, for 1,000. Or was I doing 10,000 before? Okay, very fast. Let's do it for let's do it for 1 million. So it is an issue of prints. Prints are always going to be the hard part. Okay, so 1 million is pretty slow. It is struggling to get 1 million done. Okay. So it did struggle on 1 million. It did struggle on 1 million. Right? And essentially all we're doing here is we are just incrementing an integer by 1, and that's it. We're just we're just incrementing an integer by 1. We're incrementing an integer by 1, and that's it. And it takes a long time, right? Now what happens if I remove deep? If I remove deep, theoretically, how much does that say? Oh, whoa, I did not mean to do that. It goes a lot faster. Let's see. Yeah, it's like so fast. See how snappy that is? So duplicate deep is actually pretty problematic because that duplicate deep function is actually a really, really long process. It's a really, really long command to run. That is something we're going to have to change in the future. Now, in the grand scheme of things, you're never iterating 1 million times. Right? You're never iterating 1 million times. Like, you're never actually doing iterate 1 million times on my system. You don't have to do that. But it is important to make sure we make adjustments where we can. Now, let's talk about collapsing, right? So, we have this giant text of doom. Let's collapse it, right? Let's not collapse it as in, like, solving values before we continue. I mean, collapse it as in, like, make it more readable, right? Like, how would I make this readable? And that comes down to, essentially, anytime we have a block, we try to keep the block within itself as much as possible, as you can see here. we're kind of limiting the block into itself and making it look more of like a block, you know, like a scratch block in essence. And this type of formatting is kind of my idea here, is to make it a bit more legible to understand what is happening, because it can be very hard to tell. So you can kind of see here how this works out. Let's see. So the idea here is that this should be a bit more legible, but you can see that it can be a bit finicky to look at. Perhaps. Maybe I'm just speaking to myself nonsense. So yeah, so this was equals case. So what was this? Oh, this was each of the blocks, right? So these empty blocks, even, you can even just do this. And that works. Okay. And then we have our if else block here. And then we have our loop block, including over here. And then our sequence block includes over here. So this is intended to be a bit more readable, right? Like you can now, so here it's very, very expansive. It's really hard to see anything because there's so much tabulation. There's so much like spreading out of everything here. Because at the end of the day, every single nest site, every single nest step has like one piece of information. There's not a whole lot of reason to really make a lot of indent here, but here you can kind of see the idea is to squish it down where you try and make things look kind of in more of a block pattern, right? There's more of a block pattern to everything. And you can kind of see it, you kind of may not. Now the final one is to do an even bigger block where anything that's not a sequence or pseudo sequence, like this range 2 block, we collapse it down even further. Now this is a bit more extreme, but the idea is kind of in essence to make everything just even more collapsed. But this is like a very, very crazy idea of like really collapsing everything to its greatest amount. And this itself can be, in its own way, very confusing. So, not necessarily the recommended way to approach everything here, but a method that you could take, if you so choose. I would recommend still putting these spaces here, though. But now it does, in fact, feel a bit more like a block of code, does it not? And then also within your arrays, you can also spread it out a bit, just so that you're not like sharply looking at things. But you can also, to some degree, want to collapse everything so that you can kind of see things. But like here, there's a bit of a mismatch here. So it's like, how do you treat that? Do you keep it open like this? I mean, that's probably a good idea here, is to keep these like front sides a bit open for the arrays, because then that does match the other side of the array where you would have an opening here. like that. And maybe single values don't need to, just to keep things a bit more understandable. And then here's our if else. Let's see if our if else block, how does it look? So there's a lot here that's going on. And then these blocks. So you can kind of see the idea of how everything here works. Maybe if else you make the Boolean be on a separate tab, just because it makes more sense. You put the Boolean on the separate tab, and then from there everything else kind of plays its part. Right? And you can kind of see the idea. So this is a very, very condensed measure as opposed to this, which is still pretty wide. It's very much, you can see it's now a sequence where we set the, oh, we had forgot to do the set variable too. Where now you can set the variable and everything else kind of moves on from there. Right? So it's like, okay, in our sequence we set the variable and then we do a loop which is for the range of 0 to 9, because it's range 10. And then in the block of code here, we are going to set the variable x to the addition of x plus 1, and then we add the log get var x, and then so we're just going to print the log there, and then if else, we're going to see if the variable x is equal to 5. If it is, then we start the scene. If it isn't, then we say nope, and it works. It's a functional way of coding things that actually does its job. Okay, so this is very, very useful. I'm gonna actually, I will save this file and I will save it to the main thing here. I'm gonna call it function example. Very, very good stuff though. I do enjoy that. So, big progress so far. I think I might go until 3.5 hour mark, so I think I will probably stop in the next 20 to 30 minutes. But until then, we can continue to vibe and do some development stuff. Woo! So, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Thumbs up over here. Now, there's all of this. And then I should be able to still take this, and it should still work just fine, right, too? This should also still work. And you can see if I go into execute function, and I print it, and then it does execute, and it's very, very nice looking. Same one that I've already done before. Same example, just different formatting, you know, pretty simple stuff. But yeah, that is like one of the biggest challenges we've had. Now, sequence still has some issues. We are going to do hit clause next, and the problem with hit clause is a couple issues, right? So for now, we're going to do a very primitive system where with hit clause, we're not going to worry too much. Oh, but we do need to think about statuses, don't we? So let's talk about burn status, right? So first of all, I don't have a means to display statuses yet. I will make that very quickly. We can make a display status very quick. Also, displaying a status per a unit is important. Essentially, though, what these statuses are is they will go onto the unit in their status dictionary. They will have a status dictionary, and there are going to be a couple tags associated. One of them is also going to be on apply, and like apply and then remove. Now, apply and remove are very important. What apply and remove are going to be used for is they're going to be used for stuff like protection, fragile, where they're actually editing, like hooligan, for example, we could edit their pierce damage to also include like having a base value of 5 and then a fragile value of -2, right? Or it'd be +2 because it's plus 2 more damage. That is part of the removal add clauses, apply and remove. Apply and cleanse, or whatever we want to call them, what is going to happen there is it is going to then, check the data here and then say, okay, what did I edit here? Do I have to remove it, add it, do whatever else? Which for protection and fragile, end of scene they'll remove. So essentially what's going to happen is the end of scene sequence is going to start for the fragile or protection status, which is then going to remove the status, causing the removal reaction, causing the removal sequence. And this is where we get into the signal-like system. Now this is a fun part. Do I want to make a slide? I think I do. I think it is very useful to make a slide in this instance because this is a very important piece of information to discuss. So, let's talk about it, right? So, we have an action, right? Let's talk about a basic skill. It's been a while since I've written, but let's talk about a basic skill. Let's say we have the Hooligan Knife one, right? The one we've been using. Or maybe let's use Bash. Let's use Bash. And we know that Bash has a single offensive die, which has the claws hit, and then on hit, it is essentially just deal 2 stagger, right? It is deal 2 stagger damage. So dealing 2 stagger damage is the hit clause. So in the case of so what's going to happen is in execute clash, we are going to do some things, and essentially we are going to have attacker is equal to A1, and then defender is equal to E1. Right? And so what happens here is it's going to be kind of a situation of A1 is attacking E1 and is doing an attack, which is then going to become a hit. And the card is here kind of coincidental to how I normally do the colors, but So we do an attack and we cause a hit. When we actually deal that damage here, when we are attacking them, that is going to cause, this is going to cause a signal. I'll put it down here. So that's going to cause a signal, right? And the signal is then going to go and it's going to say, we are going to start a hit sequence. And that's what we're going to. And hit sequence is then going to check. It's then going to basically check up here. And then essentially, when it goes in here and checks that, it's going to say hit. And then it's going to figure out what commands is that thing going to run. Right, that is essentially what we're doing. When we land that hit, we're going to cause the hit signal, and anything running that has a hit command, we are going to utilize. Now, skills are instantaneous in some degree, to some degree. And of course, this always gets back to my conversation about Planus Rolecall and the difficulties I had with implementing Planus Rolecall, which is why I switched to Stars of the City, this system. And it is because in Planus Rolecall, the system I made, skills are not a instantaneous or pseudo-instantaneous system. They are a persistent system. In Planus Rolecall, you had a situation where you would queue up a skill. And that skill had a time value, right? And so many things could occur during this due to other people with other actions that are going on. And at any time, you might get canceled, You might have to like redirect into something, into like a class or something else. You might have to alter something, like maybe this part gets cut out. You have to do a lot of stuff, and that's difficult to code, because that means that actions have to check, can they react to something? Now, that being said, right, if we go to Stars of the City, the manual, right, if we go to the manual for Stars of the City, I can close out all these docs and things. If we go to Stars of the City, the manual, and we go to the Combat Compendium, you'll see that the issue I had with actions does still exist with some units. I don't know if there's a good example here. On crit, deal 3 extra damage, right? Perfect example. So anytime I do that crit effect, which is when you max roll, I am then going to be forced to check the unit to see do they have a on crit clause, and we're going to get to how we handle that next. But to that concept, there is something to some degree, which is why I said pseudo instant, because at the end of the day, skills have dice. They are not fully completed upon a single action occurrence. They are not completely sequential in a perfect sequential system where there is no interruption. There is interruption, there is alteration. A good example is if we go to the skill library and we go down a bit, and let's lose my favorite tremor. What do I see here? Quaking Fear on kill, inflict 5 tremor. This is when you hit a unit and you cause that unit to reach 0 health. That is the mechanic of on kill. On kill is flagged. The action now needs to see, do I have the on kill tag? I do have the on kill tag. Let's run the sequence of on kill, and it will go to status inflict tremor 5, and it will then apply that to all remaining units, which means targeting every other enemy on the field. This can get pretty tough. So I'm not too worried about Quaking Fear at the moment. We're going to get to implementing the modules soon. I cannot wait to actually do that, by the way. Implementing modules would be cool, because what is actually going to happen is I am going to make a tool where you can make a action by straight up selecting your skill bases and your modules. And you can choose what to do to make your action, and you will receive the action file and then be able to save that. And then maybe we can even have something kind of like the Google Doc sheet where you can then convert it into these cards. Wouldn't that be pretty cool? I think so. So that is actually a good little concept there. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say through all of this is, yeah, this is going to be a very robust system. That is the goal, to make sure everything functions very well. Because then, you know, I can make something like Stonewall Illumination, which I could probably make in probably by next week. I think by the end of next week, and maybe by next week I more so mean by the end of day 21, I can probably add Stonewall Illumination, Meteor Strike, and all of this stuff. Unstable Engine would be kind of tough, because that's a bit more complex, but like, I think I can do it. And all of this, and like all the module additions, adding all the modules from the module list, you know, how do we do things like repeating and stuff. All of that is going to be very expansive. There's a whole ecosystem of tools I can make for this system, which will be very fun. It will be very fun indeed. Yeah. So we're looking at a lot of cool things here. Yeah. So, and then Tremor Burst. I can't wait for when we add Tremor Burst. That's gonna be cool. Tremor Burst, how do I actually implement Tremor Burst, right? It's probably gonna be more so just that, Tremor Burst is just gonna have the tag of Tremor Burst, and, Tremor Burst, and Tremor itself is gonna have tag Tremor Burst, which results in the sequence that does the stagger damage, and then all that. And then it actually doesn't reduce the stack. The stack is reduced by the tremor burst after it is conducted by like the hit tag, whatever. So this gets to very fun stuff. So like here, when we look at this, right? When we look at this, you might be inclined to say, oh, so we do the hit tag, and then the hit tag has all these things. It does trigger, tremor burst, and then it's like tremor -4, right? I'm very pseudocoding here. You might think that's how it works. You'd be wrong. Trigger tremor burst is essentially, in essence, trying to do the tremor burst tag, which causes a brand new depth layer to our stack. It then moves a new step in another sequence, which then is going to deal stagger damage, right? And then what happens if it deals stagger damage? Then causes the stagger to occur. And not just that, what about there is a when staggered for the person who got staggered, and then a stagger cause instance, right? And this is when we get into a situation where, yes, we have to deal with this depth branching path system. This is basically just the call stack. We are essentially making a call stack, and we need to keep track of our temp variables between sections of the call stack as they are needed. And that is going to be very, very difficult. Yeah. I will say this is going to be very difficult. This is going to be a very tough situation. How do I handle this? And my concept that I have, the plan I currently hold, is as follows, right? Here's the plan. Any tag will have a path of its source. So in this instance, the hit tag, when we cause the hit tag, we have no sequence that is, well, maybe we do have a long sequence chain, which is like the scene cause, which causes the skill, which causes the clash, which then causes the hit. Whatever this may be. Let's just pretend it is something and then hit. That is our path. Our path is currently the hit. Our parent, and what's important is our parent is ... So we can check our parent for information. Important. Then, tremor burst is then going to call a new step in the stack. Hit, and then tremor burst. And our parent is then going to be the hit. Now what happens here? Why would we need this? Right? What happens if hit has a temp var, a reference as we call them, which is x equal to 10? Well, x is actually ... /hit /x. So if we want to have a reference here called x, we would instead have ... /hit /tremor burst /x is equal to 0. Could be something completely different. But we can do parent.x, which is in essence just ... /hit /x. We are basically trying to make a system, kind of a pseudo object oriented situation here, which is our scope situation. This is scope. So we're making here. So that is going to be the fun part. That is going to be the fun part. Sequences that have already occurred, you can't really check back on those. But you get the point. This is a very big situation. And I'm going to probably screenshot this, because I'm going to definitely post this as part of our results for today. And this is a big issue. Right? And I think actually this is going to be tomorrow's job. Maybe tomorrow I might do data. I might do data tree instead. I do really want to do this though, but I know this is going to be a big undertaking. But I want to do it when it's still fresh in my head, so maybe we do it tomorrow. I'm not too sure. But that is the next task. The next task is how. How do I make this work? How do I allow for people to, you know, have these really deep chain reactions that can resolve soundly and safely? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the system shouldn't have a hit, cause tremor burst, cause stagger, cause kill again, chain reaction. The fact that that could happen needs to be patched around and built around. We need to allow and accommodate for that. That is the situation we are dealing with here. And that is the fun of everything here. That is the very big difficulty of the task I am undertaking. And it's going to be a tough one. It is not going to be an easy path. And I hope you are going to continue sticking with me through that. So, before we end off, I do want to make a status display command. Just something very easy to end off. A status display command, because we actually don't have one. And it's going to work much in the same way as display skill. Where essentially we are just going to take something like burn or bleed and then we can display it. But we should also maybe have a display status for a unit. So there's 3 situations here. I'm just going to put it in the same box here, right? I'll put it in here. Right, is there anything else I want to talk about here? I mean, this is essentially what I'm doing. I spoke a lot about the hit sequences, the sequencing system. Essentially what's going to happen, right, is something like hit, we're going to actually do a sequence for the hit, right? And that's going to just be deal stagger, set out 10, then deal damage. And, of course, information things in question. So, yeah. Very cool. I am loving this system. It has its flaws. But, man, is it pretty cool. So, the last thing I want to talk about is display status, which, it has a couple issues, right? So, if we take a display status, right? Display status command. I don't know, I can't write command. I mean, sometimes I just intentionally write a tiny and sloppy because it's kind of funny, but you get the point of what I'm trying to say. Display status command. So let's talk about display status command, right? So, in display status command, here's what we have to do, right? We are going to have the base, we're just going to have the command dog right here. But then, after that, we are going to have 3 different pathings for what our arg could be, right? There are 3 ways this thing can be. We're going to make it a multi-purpose. We can just have status. This is going to essentially be from file tree. Then we have unit status, and this is in unit, and finally just unit. And in unit, we're just going to print all. Now the issue with this, right, and I think the problem is that all of these are strings. So essentially, I decided just now, I realized that since all these are strings, this is gone. There we go. This is all we have to accommodate for. We can even move unit back here, like burn for A1. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Probably better for the args to be more simplistic if we swap these around. So we'll do that. And then, yeah, that's essentially what we're doing now for the final part of today. All the function stuff was very awesome, but it is time to start expanding so we can actually use the function system for something productive. Because as of now, there isn't really much done yet. Although, hold on. Let me show you one more thing. Do I want to? I was gonna say I can show execute skill. I can execute a skill and show it off, right? I can do remove speed dice, spend light, do skill. And let me show you how that works, okay? Let me show you how that works. Let's actually do this real quick, okay? Let's do this. We are going to do a sequence. Let's do a sequence here. Let's actually use this syntax, right? This more condensed syntax here. let us do a it's kind of hard for me to maintain it's actually kind of hard for me to construct it on my own, I feel like, so I'm not going to bother too much. But let us do this. So we are going to have the sequence. And here is what we are going to do in sequence, right? We are going to first, we are going to rem speed dice, right? Let's see. We have to remove speed dice. And we won't specify who. I don't even know which unit it's going to be. We're just going to do this. We can actually, in fact, make x equal to the variable of the unit whose die it connects to, and then we can do some other manipulations. But I'm not going to deal with that yet. So we can remove the speed dice, and then we can do some light deduction, right? We can remove light. Oh, it's actually, is it here? Oh, it's not. Oh, we can't do it. We can't remove light at least, but we can do like remove speed dice. We can do it twice. In fact, we can remove speed dice twice. Right? No OGs on this. We're just not gonna put OGs. And then all we're gonna do is then we can, and in this case I don't have like, I didn't save which units are next and all that, which I should do, but you get the point. I can then do execute skills. And it's going to run this, which is U1 is going to be A1, then E1, and then hooligan, knife 1, and then let's say big defense. Right? And if I go in here, I can run this command, and it actually runs. Look at that. It actually runs the command, and it causes all of that. But let's do something else. Let's say we want to run, instead of big defense, let's run the super evade. And then, after we execute the skill, since E1 is doing that, let's actually check the speed dice. Oh, I don't think we can check speed dice here. Actually, we can. We can just do something very cool, which is we are going to go check unit list. So we are going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to do a object call. Oopsies. Hold on. We are going to do an object call. And what is our object call going to do? We are going to get the object from, we are going to get the prop, right? We are going to get. And what are we going to get? We are going to get... oh, wait, we have to do get unit list. So we have to get the unit list. So we have to... So we have to get unit list. Well, we actually need to, anyways, prop call unit list. So hold on. Before we do object call... when we do object call, we're going to actually do from the object of prop call... And we are going to prop call from the property unit list. The method is get, and we are going to get E1. Okay? So we are now prop calling for E1. That is our object. We are getting the unit of object. And we are going to, from that object, what method are we going to do? Hold on. Am I blanking? Am I blanking right now? I might be blanking right now. Oh yeah. I have to actually do object call. Prop call from. We have to do prop call from, and then we're getting from the object, which is E1's unit, and then we are going to get specifically the saved dice. Oh, we actually just can get. We can just do a get. Kind of. Oh yeah, we just have to do... We do just have to do object call. Right, we have to do object call from that unit, and then we are going to do the get method for saved dice. This should work. Let's see. Yep. So now you can see that it actually, after you reusing all the dice, you can see that it does keep all the dice reusable. Look at that! Look at that! It works. Very, very cool. Now, one last thing I can do is I can do some more things to this sequence, right? So I can now do something like get next turn. Next turn is essentially just gonna say, hey, who is next in this turn, I think. Is it? Is that what this does? Oh, it's get next speed dice. Next turn just automatically does the turn. So. We are going to basically do get next speed die. But specifically with get next speed die, we have to get unit from die, right? So we have to get, we are going to actually do set var, right? We're going to set var, and we are going to set the value of u1 to the value of a function, which is get unit from dice. And get unit from dice is going to be a function where the name of the dice is going to be another method, which is get speed dice, I believe it is. Get next speed dice. And this doesn't have any args to it, but that is what U1 is. And then we are going to do the same thing with U2 after we remove the speed dice. And then here, we can, instead of A1, we can do get var, and we get the var named U1. And same way, U1 will be U2. And then here, we can even do the get var U2. Now, the actual thing here is that there is no speed dice. So, right, so we have to actually make the scene, right? We have to do a new scene. So we are going to first scene start. And then I don't know if we can display speed dice. Can we do that? I don't think we can. It technically is, I think it's a console command, so we actually can't do that because I kind of coded pretty poorly, and we're going to fix that in the future. Don't worry about it. But as of now, we cannot. Okay, so something seems to be awry. Let's see if I do XFN. Can I just do a get for references? References is empty. Are we okay over here? What do you mean references is empty? Can't be doing that. What? Set var? I did set var right? That's how you spell it, right? Set var. So, sequences. Scene start. Okay. Set var U1 is get unit from dice, get next speed dice. Let's make sure that actually works. So it's XFN this, and then XFN get, and then references. Huh? What command did I put? Is that not correct? Where did I mess up here? Where did I mess up? I don't know. Where did I mess up? I don't actually know. What? Are you serious? What did I do wrong? Is this not the same as this? Oh, is it because the return... Oh, the return value. The return value is a thing. Oh. Ah. Yes. Because the dictionary of return had one value in it, it got very, very upset. Oh, that's a problem. Can I put like empty value in here? I should probably have like empty, like base empty values in here. Just so it doesn't kill itself, right? So I should now be able to get references. Okay. That doesn't seem to work. Why does it not work? Can I, get the... And then get the... that... I mean, I guess, like, no anyway, so how would I know? So let's get the... And the variable is going to be called u1. Why is it no? Why are we like this? What? How is it no? How is it no? I don't understand. Did I break something? This doesn't make sense. Let's do each step of this. Well, anyways, that's gonna be no because I didn't start the scene. So the scene is now started. I can now get the next speed dice. It doesn't like that for some reason. There is speed dice on here. So what is our issue? I actually said I was going to end streaming, I ended up not. I need to figure this out. I need to figure out what I did wrong here, right? Okay, there's actually a big bug to this, then I have to fix that. Oh, I said I did dice, not die. Oh. I hate spelling. I'm different. Okay, so E0. So what happens if I do set var, if I do this whole set var thing? References is still no. Why is it a null dictionary? Why is the dictionary not functional? I don't understand. Why is the dictionary not functional? Oh, there was a missing comma here, I think. That's part of it. What was that debugger that we asked about? Get unit from dice. Oh, is it not get unit from dice? It is. No? Get a speed die. Let's get unit. It is get unit from dice, right? Am I wrong? Hold on. Let me just try the whole thing now. Again. It works! Wait, it does work now. Look at that. So it now successfully does a clash between two units, of which I do not know what happened because it was an evade, so I will never know who attacked who. Who even attacked who? I don't even know. Wait, I can just make them fight twice. I can make them fight twice. Hold up. I can just make them execute skills twice. I can make one use bash 1, and the other one use bash 1. Let's make them both use bash 1, right? What could possibly go wrong? There we go, and there's even more there's more super evade dice, and you can see it duplicates in some instances, because, you know, there's like multiple copies of the same dice. But you can now see that it does in fact work. Is that not quite awesome? Is that not quite spectacular indeed? I would say so myself. Look at that. So you can now see that damage is working. E1 got hit. Let's actually make them both use knives so you can see who is who. Or maybe something like that. Let's see. Well, instead of super evade, we can just use, this one uses parry, and then this one uses, big defense. So you can kind of see what's going on. And you can see that there's a clash and things and all that. Or what we can do here is we can actually, in this sequence we can repeat it multiple times. Let's repeat this sequence multiple times, actually. Hold on. We are going to do that. We don't have a random number generator currently, unfortunately. This does still work, so we can now just do this. And you can see it does translate. I can just do this now. I did actually have a mistake. You can see that save dice are saved between scenes. So we are going to have to actually fix that real quick. Before we end, let's fix this stuff up. Let's fix a couple issues. So with run game start for K in unit keys, we are going to add that unit. Oh wait, no, this is a different thing. We need to go to start scene. When we go to start scene, eventually we're going to put it to end scene, but for now we'll put it in start scene. Where's start scene at? Scene start. You're going to roll speed dice, regen light, and then we are going to have to we're going to have to clean save dice, but we're actually not cleaning save dice, we're just erasing save dice. We're just dumping the entire save dice array. So when we go to scene start, let's see. And then here's save dice. And then for each unit, we are going to just do unit.saveDice is going to equal, is going to be cleared. So that's all save dice clear is going to do. It's going to say, hey, wipe everything out. Very cool, right? Look at that. So now we can clear all save dice. Woo! Look at that. All save dice have been cleared. Yay! Yippee! Yippee indeed. Okay. So, now that that is all done, you'll now be able to see that in here, we can change this command to be instead of a sequence, we can use a sequence as the header, but we can also just use a loop. We can use a loop where everything here is the loop value here. And instead, there is also another set of array, where the first value in the array is going to be our range 10, as we normally do. Or in this case, we can do something a bit different. Let's see here. Where is our function? Here it is. So we can now do the range 2, and let's just do 5, right? And now let's see how this loop works. And look at that! It overflows me. Let's just do 3 loop. Let's just do 3 iterations. EXFN. And look at that. I can't even see all the data anymore. Huh. That's kind of funny. Are there no save dice? Where are my save dice? Oh, there's 1 save dice at the end. Are you telling me that there's not always save dice? Or is it just not checking? Huh? Hello? Are we okay? But this is part of the loop. Why is it not running this part of the loop? Huh. Interesting. Let's just do 2 iterations, you know? For the screenshot I want to get, I kind of don't want to deal with anything too big. But yeah, you can see here, in this instance, at the end of scene 1, there should be at least 1 dice. This one goes unopposed. This should be saved. It should print that. I don't know why it isn't. What? Why is it not printing that? Hold on. We really are just going into the 4-hour mark, aren't we? But I need to figure this out. This is the loop. It should be doing an object call, which is get save dice. So why does it only look like it does it once? Is it just an issue of like... But Big Defense has 3 blocks, so it should always have a save dice. Like, it's guaranteed to have a save dice, yeah. It's guaranteed to have a save dice. If I do super evade, right? If I do the super evade, then what is one to do? That's so weird. Why is it only calling it once? It does seem to be working though. Right? It loses against... It goes against the defense and then all of that. It doesn't reuse against defense. It does heal stagger and then all of that. Good stuff. I'm trying to figure out why object call isn't running multiple times. It only runs the last time. That doesn't make sense. There's no logic in here that should be preventing it from running multiple times. It should, right? I should be able to say do something else. And I should be able to like add log and then just say like hi, and then this should come up multiple times. Yeah, it does. Result is no now. Oh, result only goes at the end. Oh, what? Oh, what? Ooh, that's interesting. Interesting. I'm gonna save all of this just for some other details. I'm gonna actually just save like this entire like part of my screen just so I can like really show off stuff. I'm gonna have to look into that. There are some unstable processes. I won't push this to main. It will be in the other branch for you guys. That's gonna kind of be what happens there. We're gonna figure that out tomorrow. And I will actually add this one as well. This one is gonna be func example 2. And then this is gonna be other EXFN examples. We're not going to worry about roll advantage yet. This is just kind of weird. But we're going to get to that later. But thank you for watching. This has been a 4-hour stream now officially. I was going to stop like 30 minutes ago, but there's so much to do. There's so much to solve. There's so much we have done. We did do all of the elementary stuff. We did add all of the elementary basic functions, and they do seem to work. So that was kind of the namesake of the session. Next one, I don't know what we're going to do. We're either going to refactor data tree, which is going to be a very slow and long process, or we're just going to push forward and make our sequence commands. as we have described today. A lot of talk, a lot of topics, a lot of things to consider. Thank you for watching. I should probably be around sometime tomorrow. I don't know what time. We'll figure it out. Thank you for watching. I'm hoping to get a big video out soon, but I don't know if that's really going to be anytime soon. And yeah, goodbye.